de-extinction, or resurrection biology, has been talked about for many years within the scientific community. People have always wanted, or at least thought about bringing back animals such as the woolly mammoth, the passenger pigeon, and of course the dinosaurs. However, it's never really been a possibility until recently, with new technologies bringing it much closer to a reality. But the question is that really what's best? Perhaps there are other, maybe even better ways to use the science, such as from a conservation aspect. Instead of bringing back extinct species, maybe we could focus on species that are still around, that are vulnerable, such as the cheetah, or the Panamanian golden frog. Perhaps instead of focusing on species that have already left the earth and are long extinct, with or without the help of humans, we should focus on the ones that are in need now, that may be in this vulnerable state because of humans, whether directly or indirectly. To start, let's talk about the numerous problems the resurrection of an extinct species could cause. First off, where would you put the animal? If it's something as large as a typical dinosaur, there simply isn't room for it anymore. We can't have a Tyrannosaurus Rex walking through a city, and a Triceratops would wreak havoc upon a neighborhood. Not only that, but what would these creatures eat? The plant and animal life may have changed drastically since they walked the earth, and they may not be able to catch or even digest the wildlife that has replaced them. Or perhaps there simply isn't enough food. Not only that, but the temperature of this world may have also changed drastically since their era. A problem that seems to be happening at a relatively rapid rate in today's society alone, let alone since when the saber-toothed tiger or the dodo bird exist. And lastly, in the millions of years since many of these animals went extinct, much of the valuable and important DNA has been lost, making it impossible to bring them back to the same state that they left the earth. Besides, if something went extinct naturally, is it really our place to mess with natural selection?
Now, it isn't to say that bringing back all animals that went extinct is bad, impossible, or unrealistic. Take the western black rhinoceros here, for example. It was hunted to extinction by poachers for its horn, a threat that extant or living species of rhinos are still facing. Much of this animal's habitat, however, is still available. Its food sources and trophic niche, or role in the ecological community, are still there. Though the threat of poachers would still be strong, if better laws were able to be put into place to prevent this act, returning the western black rhinoceros to its environment could give this species a second fighting chance at life. Now, the use of de-extinction technology is not just limited to the resurrection of a species. It can also be used to reintroduce lost genes into a bottleneck population, such as that of the cheetah. If you look at the diagram, you'll see that the first box is filled with multicolored dots representing different genes within a population. This box also represents the population pre a natural disaster, mass hunting, etc. The second rectangle represents the population during this time, many individuals of the red and green variety dying off before being able to reproduce. This leaves the blue gene, perhaps better adapted to the hardship or by random, and those few individuals are forced to inbreed to keep the population or perhaps the entire species alive. In the last box, it appears that the population has survived the disaster, but now only animals with the blue genes exist, driving down the genetic diversity of the population as a whole and leaving it prone to being wiped out by a single disease. An example of a species decimated by disease spread is that of the Panamanian golden frog. This animal was already threatened by habitat loss in the pet trade, but the introduction of the amphibian citrus fungus has pushed this species over the edge and has killed and continues to kill numerous individuals. Conservation efforts are now being made, scientists withdrawing the species entirely from the wild and making attempts to breed them in captivity, but the fungus continues to take a toll on the population. If an extinct gene was discovered that was partially or maybe even entirely resistant to the citrus fungus in the Panamanian golden frog or close relatives' genes, perhaps it could save this species from the brink of extinction. Or maybe the technology could be used to ensure that more of the offspring are female, a step in the right direction, as it would cause the natality or birth rate of the struggling species to increase when the females reached reproductive age. However, there are no easy answers, not to the Panamanian golden frog or to any species, in the way of conservation or resurrection, though new de-extinction technology does provide some new hopes and paths for the future in both directions.